Welcome to the final Football Reporters regular season review of Week 17, final week of the season. Next week's the playoffs. I'm filming this right after the Minnesota Vikings clinch the NFC North, defeating the Green Bay Packers 20-13 in the final regular season game of the year. As I probably should talk about this game first. So the way that this format is going to go, I'm going to talk about all the games that are important in terms of playoff seeding and everything. I'm also going to be talking about possible coach firings and firings that already happened. Stuff that I've missed over the past few weeks because of the holiday. I've been sick. I was just up north. I didn't have any internet connection, so I couldn't give you guys a good video. And right now I'm feeling not perfect, but I feel better. I feel good enough to do this video too. I think you guys deserve it. It is the last regular season game of the year. So let's take a look here. Vikings win the division for the first time since 2009. 20-13 over the Packers, and this one was a nail biter at the end. Let's see here. This game was slow offensively in the first. Halftime score was 6-3. Both defenses were playing pretty well and containing the whole thing. The second half, it just kind of pretty much exploded. In the whole thing, it's like the defense for the Minnesota Vikings. The key thing was when the Packers got the first half kickoff, they forced them to go 3-and-out, which allowed Minnesota to score a rushing touchdown by Adrian Peterson. Then they had to fumble again. They had two 3-and-outs. The Minnesota Viking defense. That one of them resulted in a touchdown by Adrian Peterson. The other one resulted in a really bad interception throw by Teddy Bridgewater. I will give him a lot of credit, but that was a really, really bad interception that he threw with his left hand. And Michael Hyde just made a great one-handed catch to trying to keep on moving with this whole thing. As a result of the whole thing, the Packers do get the ball back. Aaron Rodgers got strip sacked, which got Ryan back for a touchdown, which put the Vikings up 20-3. It looked all hope was lost for Green Bay at that point when all of a sudden they come down. Aaron Rodgers puts a 14-play drive together, went down 80 yards, scored the touchdown. They threw the touchdown to Richard Rodgers. They get the ball back in the fourth. They got a field goal to go up, make it 13-20. They're driving down the field. After the field goal, this is where it got really interesting because I actually did make a pre-recording of this first. After this, and I figured out just scrap it and just go to the next one and wait to the end of the game. Cordell Patterson got the ball. He ran 70 yards downfield. At that point, I'm like, all right, might as well record this so this whole thing is over. And then Cordell Patterson fumbled. Mason Crosby hit the ball out of his hand. He fumbled, which caused Green Bay to get the ball back at the 30 and allowed them to at least tie the game. It got down to they're at the 10-yard line. And Aaron Rodgers throws an interception on fourth down, which is uncharacteristic of Aaron Rodgers, who is missing he's definitely missing his best receiver, Jordy Nelson. Someone on this receiving core of the Green Bay Packers has to step up. They need to get more help for Aaron Rodgers. They have to protect him because this offensive line is really bad. It's very makeshift. They gave up 5 sacks in this game, which is less than their 8 sacks they gave up last week against the Arizona Cardinals. Going into the playoffs, they'll be going up against and then at the end of the whole thing, they do get the ball back one more time, and they turned over on downs when Aaron Rodgers just threw a Hail Mary pass to Richard Rodgers when Xavier Rhodes deflects the ball out of his hands and turns it over on downs. The Minnesota Vikings hold on to win and win the NFC North. They will be playing Walker Weekend against the Seattle Seahawks, who we'll dive into later how well they did today, how well they played today, and hopefully the Minnesota Vikings are hoping for a different result than they did last time. As for the Green Bay Packers, they'll travel to Washington against the Washington Redskins, who clinched the division last week. I didn't get to talk about that, but hey, what are you going to do? So that's the sum up of that game. Let's go through the rest of the games that happened today. Starting with at least playoff implications, we'll start with the New England Patriots coming into today, the number one seed in the AFC. If they won today, that they will get a first round bye. Home field advantage. They did not do that. Oh, hey, I want to know they have this whole thing all set up here. So it'll be Sunday and Sunday. So the two AFC titles games will be on Saturday. I'll get to them later. The Patriots came out. They had a very conservative game plan early. They were hanging the ball off a lot. Brady only threw 5 passes in the first half. Miami, on the other hand, they played a pretty solid football game for a team that's pretty much not making the playoff. They were not making the playoffs. They were 6-10. Dan Campbell's probably going to get released. His staff's going to get released probably tomorrow morning. Ryan Tannehill had 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Patriots only scored 10 points, which is a season low. Brady only had 130 yards passing. They really are very much so stricken by injuries, and they're hoping in the playoffs they'll get back guys like Chandler. They didn't have Chandler Jones for this game. They didn't have Dante Hightower, Julian Edelman, Sebastian Vollmer. They're hoping that they will get those key players back for the playoffs in the divisional round, whoever they may face, which we'll get into later. I'm just gonna hold it out there that they will get their players back, hopefully nice and healthy. I'm actually kind of okay with the game plan. I don't know. I didn't agree with when it was 3rd and long for Brady not to throw the ball, but he did take some scary hits. The offensive line did not protect him at all. This offensive line has been pretty bad over the past few weeks for the Patriots, and hopefully a week's rest will give them a chance to move on. And that's it for them. They had to do this. They had to win. Now they had to hope for Denver to lose against San Diego, which I'll dive into that game later and see what happens. So here, this is Cincinnati Bengals. They pretty much beat the. Next up is the ball. Let's take a look at the Jets, who coming in today were at the 6th seed and favored to go ahead and probably win that last wild card against they're going up against the Buffalo Bills. Their former head coach and everything at the end of the whole thing. All they had to do was win, and they're in. They did not do that. The Jets did what the Jets normally do, and that's choke. The Jets choked this game away. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 3 interceptions, one of them in the end zone to put the Jets up. They lost 22-17. Buffalo got off early. They came out hard. The Jets had a chance to win this game 3 times, and they threw a couple. And Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 3 interceptions. Sammy Watkins had 138 yards receiving. No touchdowns, but against Darrelle Revis, he's pretty much owned them. He is owning them. Brandon Marshall had 126 yards and a touchdown. It's a shame that he's not making the playoffs this year because there's some great players on this Jets team that really deserve to be in the playoffs. This team is a playoff team, I think, next year. A very high explosive offense, a really great defense, and a good head coach. This team does have the tools to succeed. Unfortunately, they're in the same division as the New England Patriots, who, when fully healthy, pretty much are the best team in this league. I don't care what they say. Call me a homer. Call me anything you want. This team, the New England Patriots, when they're fully healthy, are the best team in football. The Jets are a good team, not a great team. They can become a great team in the offseason if they pick up a not a journeyman quarterback like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I would probably maybe take a look at the free agent market, look at they're not going to have a high draft pick in the first round, so hey, you never know. There's been some diamonds in the rough over the years for quarterbacks. Who knows? as for the other team, that team that did make the playoffs, the team that did win their 6th seed was the Pittsburgh Steelers. They defeated the Cleveland Browns 28-12. Antonio Brown had continued this is really great run he's had. He had 12 receptions for 187 yards and a touchdown. They won 28-12. The Browns have already fired their GM and their head coach, Mike Pettin. This team is pretty putrid. Hey, buddy. I'm so tired. I have my dog with me. He says hi. What? Okay. So the Browns have already fired their GM and their head coach. They're going to have the 2nd pick in the draft behind the Tennessee Titans. They'll be pretty much pressing the restart button again, probably looking for a new quarterback because Johnny Manziel ain't cutting it. Obviously, I don't think he cares. I don't think he, honest to God, cares. And I'm just gonna get sidetracked here for a second. I'm gonna talk about this guy Johnny Manziel, who really had everything handed to them, and he fucked up. He doesn't know what to do. He is brainless. He has no head. He doesn't think. He's not committed. He doesn't care about this whole thing. It's one thing if you try, you fail, but you try again harder. Ryan Fitzpatrick, even though he threw 3 interceptions today, he said, hey, that one's on me. And he had a pretty good season, even though he's had he worked on it, he succeeded. Right now he might be succeeding. Who knows? He might be in the quarterback of the Jets next year. Johnny Manziel doesn't care. He hasn't proven anything. He's acting like a child, a 22-year-old child with a bad alcohol problem and a bad attitude. The Browns would be starting over in a new quarterback again. Great going, Johnny. Money. Okay. The Houston Texans are going to be going to the playoffs. They clinched the AFC South. They defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars 30-6. Blake Bortles threw 2 interceptions. Not really a great day for him. Brian Hoyer had an okay day. They had an okay day, but the defense really was monstrous in this game. Only gave up 6 points. The defense had been monstrous this entire time in this big run that they had. And now they'll be going into the playoffs. They'll be facing off against the Kansas City Chiefs, a rematch from Week 1 where they got absolutely trounced. They got stomped on. And who knows, maybe they're trying to return the table. This is going to be a game I'm very interested in, which I'll preview a little later in this video. Let's see here. I think that's it for the 1 o'clock games for playoff things that matter. I'll go over the rest of the games later, but when I go over them, I'll just talk about what this team needs, and then I'll go over the playoff stuff a little later. Speaking to Kansas City, all they had to do was they had a chance to be in the divisional race. All they had to do was win, and over a Denver loss. So they faced off against Oakland in their own stadium, and played as well as you possibly could. They were at one point they were up 23-10. This team has won 10. They've won 10 straight games. Going into the playoffs, they're a really hot team, and they've done most of it without Justin Houston and Tamba Hali, 2 of their best pass rushers they have. They probably will get them back for the playoffs. This team is scary. This team is a really scary team going into this playoffs. And I give them credit for not giving up at starting at 1-5, and this whole thing. The Chiefs have really played well throughout the season, throughout the latter half of the season. After they started at 1-5, and they will be going to the playoffs again. They're the 5th seed. They had a chance to go up to the 2 seed if the San Diego Chargers were able to beat Denver in Denver, which they came close, but not quite. They lost 27-20 in this game. This game was pretty interesting throughout the whole thing. Brock Osweiler and the offense in the first half turned the ball over 5 times. And most were not Brock Osweiler's fault, but Gary Kubiak decided they needed to be changed, so he sat him down, and they brought out Peyton Manning, who did okay. He did relatively okay. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't throw a touchdown either. But Ronnie Hillman had 117 yards and a touchdown. Phillip Rivers threw a 80-yard touchdown pass to, what was his name? Not Terrence Williams. Terrell Williams. His first career catch is an 80-yard touchdown. When Aqib Tully just blew his coverage. San Diego has been crippled by injuries this year. They'll be having a high draft pick. They'll be picking 3rd overall. Denver wins. They clinch to the AFC West, and they're the number 1 seed. And the road to the Super Bowl, the road to Santa Clara will go through Denver in the AFC with the win, and also because of the Patriots losing in Denver gives the Denver Broncos the gives them the head-to-head matchup advantage, which puts Denver at the number 1 seed. Other games to concern about: the Seattle Seahawks defeated the Arizona Cardinals 36-6. Carson Palmer didn't play in the second half. He didn't have a great first half. The team just got stomped by Seattle. So the Arizona Cardinals will be the 2 seed and have a first round bye. The Arizona Cardinals will be the 6th seed because of the head-to-head matchup loss to the Green Bay Packers, which I ran over earlier. The Carolina Panthers have clinched home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They're now 15-1. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 38-10. And right now, the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC will go through Charlotte, North Carolina. It's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be very interesting. The Washington Redskins won today as well. Even though they already were in the playoffs at this point. That's why I didn't go over it earlier. But they beat the Dallas Cowboys, which I thoroughly enjoyed, 34-23. But they gave up over 400 yards to Kerry Moore. And I cannot picture what's going to be like next week when they go up against the Green Bay Packers, but who knows? Who knows what could happen? Okay, now that's all out of the way. Let's talk about some big news coming out of the NFL, and that's the coaching firings. I already mentioned earlier the Browns firing Mike Patton and their GM, whoever I get the name of right now. Chip Kelly has been released by the Philadelphia Eagles, which I don't get why they did it, to be honest. I mean, it's only been 1 year of him being GM. I would have given him more time. I think the way the season ended was pretty well for them. I mean, they did beat the end of the season on a high note. They beat the Giants 35-30. Relatively speaking, they finished the season 7-9, and who knows what can happen with the Philadelphia Eagles now. I don't know who they will be going for in terms of head coaching. I'm just telling you. I'll cover that in a later video, like the coaching carousel and the whole thing of who I think is going to go where, who I think is going to get fired as well. So, Chuck Pagano won his final game, I think, as an Indianapolis Colts. Speaking of coaches, I think he can be fired. He won. They won 30-24 with Josh Freeman as quarterback. Even though they had a chance to win the division, they needed a miracle. They didn't get that miracle. They still won. They left on a high note. They won 30-24 over the Tennessee Titans, who have secured the first overall pick in the draft. The question is, will they keep Mike Mularkey as their head coach? I think they should, because this team definitely needs a lot of offensive help. This team was a sinking ship when he joined, so I give him maybe a little bit more of a chance as opposed to Dan Campbell, who I mentioned earlier, probably will be back in his bags tomorrow. He already probably has his bags already bagged and heading out. New Orleans, there's a lot of rumors that this might be Sean Payton's last year. I think it might be his last year, but who knows? It might cost him a hefty price to leave New Orleans, but they did win today 20-17 over the Atlanta Falcons, which is also great. The Detroit Lions beat the Chicago Bears also 24-20. There's no head coaching firings here. Jim Caldwell is safe. The emotionless Jim Caldwell. And then John Fox, well, I think he's safe anyway. It's still quarterback. They're still going to keep Cutler. They're still going to keep Alshon Jeffrey. There's not really much to get changed here in Chicago. They finished the season 6-10 after a relatively good middle of the season, but who knows? Who knows what can happen? Do I think Jason Garrett's going to be fired? I think he should, but I don't know if they will. Jerry Jones, I don't know what his mindset is. I think that I think that Jason Garrett should be fired because I think he's terrible at clock management. He's not really good at motivating his players. His players fight all the time. There's a lot of infighting and there's a lot of egos. I don't think he's the right head coach for that kind of team. But who knows what could happen? The San Francisco 49ers, they won today 19-16 over the St. Louis Rams. And Jim Tonsula has been fired already. And that kind of sucks for him, but this team was terrible. This team was absolutely crippled by an offseason. I don't think they should have fired him. I think they probably should have demoted him back to defensive coordinator and go for someone else. Who knows? It just turned out to be so terrible. So terrible for them. And right now, who knows? Who knows what happens to Jim Tonsula? And the Niners, I don't know who wants that job. It's a very attractive offer, but the question is who's going to take the job. Saban, Peyton, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. Mike McCoy probably will be fired. His team underachieved, even though they were crippled by injuries. The team very much underperformed, and someone has to be held accountable, and he probably will be held accountable for it. Let's see, anyone else who I think should be fired? Tom Coughlin. Is this the final year of Tom Coughlin? I don't think so. That's my stance on it. I think the guy's a great head coach, even though he has he has zero defensive talent. If anyone should be fired, it should be Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants, who's not really that good at his job. I don't know why people keep him jobs, but I don't know. I'm not that kind of guy. That's it for all the coaching firings so far. We'll find out. Well, technically it is tomorrow. Well, the day I'm recording this. Let's talk about here are the final playoff standings for the NFL in 2015. Let's start with the AFC. The Denver Broncos are the number 1 seed, followed by the New England Patriots. Both teams will get a first round bye. The Bengals will be 3. The Texans will be 4. The Chiefs will be 5, and the Steelers will be 6. So wildcard weekend will be between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The rematch from where Andy Dalton broke his thumb. Andy Dalton will not be back in this game. It will be A.J. McCarron starting for the Cincinnati Bengals at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a Steelers team who has really great offensive talent. Going against the Bengals, who have a really good defensive talent. The last time these two teams faced, the upper all almost broke out. I don't know what will happen at this time. It's going to be in Cincinnati, where Cincinnati's not really had that much success at home in the playoffs over the past couple of years. They've made the playoffs 4 straight times. They've lost 3 straight playoff games. The question is, what will happen this time? Can they get past the wildcard weekend? For Cincinnati, they hope so, and for Marvin Lewis, you hope so. Because if the Cincinnati Bengals do not win this game against Pittsburgh Steelers, I think that Marvin Lewis' should be accountable. He will be fired by the end of the season. The other wild card I already mentioned earlier would be the Houston Texans going against the Kansas City Chiefs. These two teams have really great defenses and quarterbacks. Okay, I would take Alex Smith over Brian Hoyer, if you're just my opinion. DeAndre Hopkins. These two teams are very similar in how they're built. They have a okay quarterback, kind of bad offensive line, okay running, a backup running backs, one giant wide receiver, in Jeremy Maclin versus DeAndre Hopkins for the Houston Texans. The only difference is, I think, is Travis Kelce, who in week 1 absolutely demolished the team. Both teams have a good monstrous pass rush, and an okay secondary. Right now, I'm just going to go with the hot hand, and I forgot to think of my prediction for the other one. I think the Steelers will probably win the game against the Bengals. I forgot to say that earlier. But as for this one, I think that I'm going to go with the hot team. The hot team is the Kansas City Chiefs, coming into this playoff season winning 10 straight games, going against the Houston Texans team who they beat the fuck out of in the first game of the season. And I think it will repeat itself. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs will win, and they win handily. Both these games will be happening on Saturday. As for the NFC playoffs, the two teams with a bye, like I said, it will be Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals. Will be going off against each other. Will have the first round bye. As for the playoff games, it'll be a rematch of the regular season. It'll be the NFC North champions, Minnesota Vikings, going against the Seattle Seahawks. Going against the Seattle Seahawks, a team that absolutely kicked their ass the last time that they seen these two teams face in the same building. I think Seattle will do probably the same. It's a nice little story with Minnesota, but I think Seattle's got better. I think they're better on defense. I think they have a better. They have definitely got their quarterback's really good, and he's doing a lot with nothing. And maybe they'll have Marshawn Lynch back for this game. Who knows? As for the other game, I think Green Bay's absolutely going to kick the asses of the Washington Redskins, because Washington just gave up, has no defensive talent whatsoever, and Aaron Rodgers, who is the pound for pound the best quarterback in the league, is going to shred them. Absolutely 100% shred them. So that will be it. This is a short video. Like I said, I don't have anyone else with me, so I don't know if anyone wants to give their opinions or anything. I will be making another video later on this week to further go in depth into these 4 games. I'll also be talking about the coaching firings and going through the draft order for the first, I think it's 19 teams. The first 19 teams, the teams that didn't make it, and what their needs are, and addressing them one by one. And as we get closer to the draft, maybe we'll get a good team synopsis. And at the end of the season, at the end of this whole thing, I will be doing year-end awards. I will be giving out Coach of the Year, MVP, Offensive Player, Defensive Player, and Rookie of the Year. Those are the 5 awards I gave out. Those are the only 5 I care about. So for Chris, who's not here, for BJ, like Ghost is a dog. How great is that? This is the Football Reporters. Until next time, peace.